The Milky Way galaxy was teeming with countless worlds, each one unique in its own way. Among them was the planet Vega, home to a young and vibrant human civilization that had only recently begun to venture out into the stars. Though their technological capabilities were still relatively limited compared to the ancient spacefaring races that populated the galaxy, the people of Vega were filled with a spirit of exploration and discovery. One day, a team of vegan scientists and astral explorers were studying the readings from a newly established deep space observatory. As they scanned the endless void beyond their planet, they picked up something unprecedented: the faint but unmistakable signatures of a massive fleet of ships, drifting silently through the void. The fleet was colossal in scale, with vessels that dwarfed anything the vegans had ever encountered. "What is that?" exclaimed the lead scientist, her eyes widening with a mix of awe and trepidation. "I've never seen anything like it before. The power readings are off the charts." Her colleagues scrambled to analyze the data, their excitement palpable. After hours of intense study, they concluded that this was no ordinary fleet. These were the remnants of an ancient armada, a relic from a bygone era when spacefaring civilizations rose and fell across the galaxy. News of the discovery quickly spread across Vega, igniting the imaginations of the people. Some viewed it as a profound historical find, a window into the galaxy's distant past. Others, however, saw it as a potential threat, a powerful force from an unknown origin that could pose a danger to their still developing civilization. The ruling council of Vega convened emergency meetings to discuss how to proceed. Should they attempt to make contact with this ancient fleet, or would it be wiser to keep their distance and avoid drawing unwanted attention? The debate raged on, with experts and commentators offering a wide range of opinions. In the end, the council decided to take a cautious approach. They would dispatch a small exploratory mission to study the fleet from a safe distance, gathering as much information as possible without making direct contact. The mission would be led by Terran, a young but highly respected scientist with a reputation for both his intellect and his bravery. As Terran and his crew prepared to embark on their historic voyage, the people of Vega watched with a mix of excitement and trepidation. What secrets would the ancient fleet hold? And would their encounter with this mysterious relic of the past forever change the course of their own civilization? The news of the discovery of the ancient fleet in the depths of space had sent shockwaves through the vegan civilization. While some viewed it as a remarkable historical find, ripe with potential for learning about the galaxy's past, others could not help but feel a growing sense of unease. Chief among the skeptics was Joran, a prominent politician and vocal critic of the expedition, led by the young scientist Terran. In Joran's eyes, the ancient fleet represented a grave threat that needed to be dealt with swiftly and decisively. "This fleet is a relic from a bygone age, an age when civilizations rose and fell with the blink of an eye," Joran declared during a televised address. "Who's to say that the beings who built this armada are not still out there, waiting to reclaim what they see as rightfully theirs? We cannot afford to be complacent in the face of such overwhelming power." Joran's words struck a chord with many vegans, who found themselves gripped by a mix of fascination and fear. Some took to the streets, staging protests and demanding that the government take immediate action to neutralize the perceived threat. Others, more cautious in their approach, argued that it would be unwise to antagonize an enemy they knew little about. Terran, meanwhile, remained steadfast in his conviction that the ancient fleet posed no immediate danger. As he and his crew prepared to embark on their mission, he addressed the public with a calm and measured tone. "This discovery represents a unique opportunity to learn about our galaxy's past," Terran said. "Rather than rushing to judgment, we must approach this situation with open minds and a spirit of scientific inquiry. Who knows what secrets the ancient fleet may hold, secrets that could shed light on the very origins of our civilization." Despite Terran's reassurances, Joran and his supporters only grew more vociferous in their demands for action. They accused the government of putting the entire planet at risk by allowing the exploratory mission to proceed, and they called for the immediate deployment of Vega's limited military resources to destroy or disable the ancient vessels. The debate raged on, with both sides becoming increasingly entrenched in their positions. The people of Vega found themselves torn, unsure of whether to heed the warnings of Joran or the more measured approach advocated by Terran and his supporters. As the exploratory mission prepared to launch, the tension on Vega reached a fever pitch. Protesters gathered outside the spaceport, their chants and banners calling for the mission to be aborted. Inside, Terran and his crew steeled themselves for the journey ahead, determined to unlock the secrets of the ancient fleet, no matter the cost. "We are standing on the precipice of a new era," Terran said to his team, just moments before they boarded their ship. "Whatever we find out there, it will change the course of our civilization forever. Are you ready to face the unknown?" The crew nodded, their faces set with a mixture of determination and apprehension. As the engines roared to life and the ship lifted off, the people of Vega watched with bated breath, unsure of what the future might hold. The voyage to the ancient fleet was a tense and arduous one for Terran and his crew. As their small exploratory vessel drew closer to the massive vessels, they couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The sheer scale of the fleet was staggering, with each individual ship dwarfing anything Vega had ever produced. "I'm picking up faint power signatures from the vessels," reported Joda, the ship's sensor officer, "but they appear to be dormant. No active systems detected." Terran nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Keep scanning for any signs of life or activity. We need to proceed with the utmost caution." As the Vegan ship approached the perimeter of the ancient fleet, the crew couldn't help but marvel at the intricate design and craftsmanship of the vessels. They were clearly the product of a civilization far more advanced than their own, with sleek, angular hulls and propulsion systems that defied their current understanding of physics. "Incredible," whispered Terran, his eyes wide with wonder. "Just imagine the technology that went into building something like this." Suddenly, Jada's console began to beep frantically. "Captain, I'm detecting a response from the fleet. Energy readings are increasing across the board." Terran's heart raced as he stared out the viewport, watching in awe as the ancient vessels began to stir to life. Lights flickered on, and the hum of powerful engines filled the void around them. "Full evasive maneuvers," Terran barked, his voice tense with urgency. "Get us out of here now." The vegan ship lurched as its pilot engaged the thrusters, sending it careening away from the awakening fleet. But no sooner had they begun their escape than one of the massive vessels broke formation, its course set directly for the much smaller vegan craft. "They're locking onto us," Jada cried, her fingers flying across her console. "Powering some kind of weapon system." Terran gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles turning white, braced for impact. In a blinding flash, a beam of intense energy lanced out from the ancient vessel, striking the vegan ship with devastating force. The small craft shuddered and groaned under the onslaught, its shields flickering and collapsing. "Hull integrity failing," one of the crew members shouted. "We're losing life support systems." Terran clenched his jaw, his mind racing as he tried to formulate a plan. "Get a distress signal out to Vega," he ordered, "and prepare the escape pods. We may not be able to outrun them, but we have to try." As the vegan ship continued its desperate flight, the ancient vessel pursued relentlessly, its powerful engines propelling it forward with ease. Terran and his crew knew that their only hope was to somehow make it back to Vega and warn their people of the danger that now threatened their homeworld. But even as they fought to escape, a growing realization began to dawn on Terran. This was no mere ancient relic, but a weapon of unimaginable power, one that had been forged by an advanced civilization that had long since vanished from the galaxy. "What are we dealing with here?" he wondered aloud, his voice tinged with a mixture of fear and awe. "And why has it chosen to awaken now?" The answers to those questions, Terran knew, would determine the fate not just of his crew, but of the entire vegan civilization. As the ancient vessel drew ever closer, he braced himself for the confrontation that was to come, his resolve steeled by the knowledge that the future of his world hung in the balance. The vegan exploratory vessel, battered and damaged from its encounter with the ancient fleet, limped back towards the homeworld of Vega. Terran and his crew had barely managed to escape the relentless pursuit of the massive vessel, jettisoning their escape pods just in time before their own ship was destroyed. As the escape pods hurtled through the void, the crew members huddled together, their faces etched with a mix of fear and disbelief. "What was that thing?" breathed Joda, her voice trembling. "I've never seen anything like it." Terran shook his head slowly, his mind racing. "I don't know, but it's clear that we're dealing with a power beyond anything we've ever encountered. We have to warn Vega. They need to know what's out there." The journey back to Vega was a tense and apprehensive one, with the crew constantly scanning their surroundings for any sign of the ancient vessel. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they caught sight of the familiar blue-green orb of their home planet, and their spirits lifted momentarily. But as they drew closer, they were met with an unexpected sight. The skies of Vega were alive with activity, as dozens of vegan ships scrambled to defend their world from an unseen threat. "What's happening?" Terran exclaimed, his heart pounding. "Has the ancient fleet followed us?" Jada's fingers flew across her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm picking up." "Oh no. Terran, the ancient fleet has already arrived. They're engaging our defenses." Terran's blood ran cold as he watched the unfolding battle through the viewport. The massive vessels of the ancient fleet effortlessly brushed aside the vegan ships, their superior firepower and maneuverability overwhelming the defenders. "We have to get down there," Terran said, his voice laced with determination. "We have to warn them, tell them what we know." As the escape pods hurtled towards the surface of Vega, the crew members braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation. But what they found upon landing was a scene of utter chaos and confusion. The streets of the capital city were filled with panicked citizens, many of them fleeing in terror as the ancient vessels continued their relentless assault. Terran and his crew quickly made their way to the government headquarters, where they were ushered into an emergency meeting with the ruling council. "Captain Terran, thank the stars you've returned," said the lead counselor, her face etched with worry. "We've been trying to make contact with you for hours. What can you tell us about this ancient fleet?" Terran took a deep breath, his eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. "The fleet is far more advanced than anything we've ever encountered. Their ships are capable of devastating firepower, and they seem intent on subjugating our world. We barely escaped their pursuit, and now they've arrived on Vega." The counselors exchanged troubled glances, their faces grim. "Then it's true," one of them said solemnly. "This ancient fleet is not simply a relic of the past, but a weapon of unimaginable power. And somehow it has found its way to our doorstep." Terran nodded, his expression grave. "There's more. As we were escaping, we made a startling discovery. The ancient fleet, it's not from some long-lost alien civilization. It's human-built." The room fell silent as the counselors absorbed this shocking revelation. Terran could see the disbelief and confusion written on their faces, and he knew that this discovery would forever change the course of Vega's history. "Human-built," one of the counselors finally whispered, his voice trembling. "But that's impossible. How could our ancestors have created such a monstrosity underscore?" Terran shook his head, his expression somber. "I don't know, but we have to find out, and we have to do it quickly. The fate of our entire civilization hangs in the balance." As the council debated their next move, Terran and his crew watched the battle unfold outside, their hearts heavy with the weight of their newfound knowledge. They had uncovered a secret that could shatter the very foundations of vegan society, and now they had to find a way to use that knowledge to save their world from the devastating power of the ancient fleet. The future had never seemed so uncertain, and Terran knew that the choices they made in the coming days would determine the fate of their entire species. The revelation that the ancient fleet ravaging Vega was of human origin sent shockwaves through the ruling council and the population at large. It was a discovery that challenged the very foundations of Vegan history and identity, shattering the long-held belief that their civilization had evolved in isolation, untouched by the deeds of their distant ancestors. As the council deliberated on how to respond to this crisis, Terran and his crew found themselves at the center of the maelstrom, their first-hand experience and knowledge becoming invaluable assets in the fight for Vega's survival. "We must understand the true nature of this fleet and how it came to be," declared one of the counselors, her brow furrowed in deep thought. "Only then can we hope to find a way to counter its devastating power." Terran nodded solemnly. "From what we could gather, the vessels are ancient, relics from a time long before our own civilization took shape. But the underlying technology is undeniably human in origin." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the council members. "Which means that somewhere in our past, our ancestors possessed the knowledge and capability to create such an advanced and formidable fleet. The question is, what happened to them?" The council chamber fell silent as the gravity of Terran's words sank in. Vegan historians and scholars had long believed that their people had emerged from a relatively peaceful and isolated history, free from the kind of cataclysmic events that had shaped the fates of other galactic civilizations. But now, it seemed that a dark and forgotten chapter of their past was about to be unearthed. "We must re-examine every scrap of historical data we have," one of the counselors said, his eyes alight with a newfound sense of purpose. "Scour our archives, cross-reference our findings, whatever clues we can uncover about the origins of this fleet and its connection to our own history." Terran nodded in agreement, already formulating a plan of action. "I'll assemble a team of the best researchers and historians we have. Together, we'll piece together the puzzle, no matter how difficult or painful the truth may be." As the council meeting adjourned, Terran and his crew found themselves thrust into the heart of a desperate race against time. The ancient fleet continued its relentless assault on Vega, and the Vegan military, for all its technological might, was struggling to hold back the onslaught. Terran knew that the answers they sought could mean the difference between victory and defeat, survival and annihilation. With a renewed sense of urgency, he and his team delved into the archives, scouring through millennia-old records and artifacts, searching for any clues that could shed light on the fleet's origins. The work was painstaking and often frustrating, as the historical data was fragmented and incomplete. But slowly, a picture began to emerge, one that challenged everything the Vegans had ever believed about their own past. According to these records, our ancestors were once a highly advanced spacefaring civilization, Terran reported to the council, his voice tinged with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "They had the capability to travel the stars, to build ships and weapons that surpassed anything we've ever known." The counselors exchanged troubled glances, their faces etched with a growing sense of unease. "What happened to them?" one of them asked, the apprehension palpable in her words. Terran shook his head, his expression grave. "It seems that something catastrophic occurred, a cataclysmic event that brought our ancestors' civilization crashing down. The records are unclear on the details, but it's evident that they were unable to withstand the forces that ultimately led to their downfall." A heavy silence fell over the council chamber as the implications of Terran's findings sank in. If their ancestors had once possessed such immense power, what had caused them to lose it? And more importantly, could the same fate now befall the Vegan civilization, as it faced the onslaught of the ancient fleet? Terran knew that the answers to these questions would be crucial in determining their path forward. With time running short and the ancient fleet's assault showing no signs of abating, the Vegans found themselves facing a stark choice: embrace the truth of their past, no matter how painful, or risk being consigned to the same fate that had befallen their forebears. The fate of their world hung in the balance, and Terran knew that the decisions they made in the coming days would echo through the ages, shaping the very course of their civilization's future. The revelation that the ancient fleet ravaging Vega was of human origin sent shockwaves through the vegan populace, sparking a fierce debate that threatened to tear the planet apart. On one side were those who demanded swift and decisive action, arguing that the fleet represented a grave threat that needed to be eliminated at all costs. Led by the fiery politician Joran, this faction called for the immediate mobilization of Vega's entire military might, even if it meant sacrificing everything to destroy the ancient vessels. We cannot allow this abomination to continue its assault on our world, Joran thundered during a televised address. These so-called ancestors of ours have clearly betrayed us, and we must now take the necessary steps to ensure our own survival. Joran's impassioned rhetoric struck a chord with many vegans who found themselves gripped by a growing sense of fear and desperation. They rallied behind his call to action, flooding the streets with protests and demanding that the ruling council take immediate steps to counter the ancient fleet's onslaught. On the other side were those who advocated for a more measured and cautious approach, led by Terran and his team of researchers. They argued that understanding the true nature of the fleet and its connection to vegan history was crucial, and that rushing into a confrontation without a deeper understanding of the threat could prove disastrous. We must not let our fear and anger cloud our judgment, Terran pleaded during a televised debate with Joran. Yes, the fleet represents a grave danger, but we cannot simply lash out blindly and hope to prevail. We need to know what we're up against and how our ancestors came to create such a formidable weapon in the first place. Terran's words, however, fell on deaf ears among Joran's growing contingent of supporters. The politician dismissed the young scientist's pleas as the ramblings of a coward, and he redoubled his efforts to sway public opinion in his favor. We cannot afford the luxury of patience and contemplation, Joran thundered. Every moment we hesitate, the ancient fleet grows stronger, and our world edges closer to destruction. The time for action is now. As the debate raged on, the vegan government found itself increasingly polarized and unable to reach a consensus on how to proceed. Factions emerged within the ruling council, with some members siding with Joran's call for immediate military action, while others supported Terran's more cautious approach. The resulting gridlock left Vega's defenses in a state of disarray, just as the ancient fleet continued its relentless assault. The vegan military, stretched thin and lacking a clear strategic direction, struggled to hold back the onslaught, suffering mounting casualties with each passing day. Terran and his team, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to uncover the secrets of the ancient fleet, scouring the archives and piecing together the fragmented history of their ancestors. But their efforts were hampered by the growing political turmoil, as Joran and his supporters sought to undermine their work at every turn. They're trying to keep the truth from us, Joran accused, his eyes burning with a fanatical intensity. Terran and his ilk are more concerned with preserving their own reputations than they are with saving our world. The accusations only served to further inflame the already volatile situation, with Vega's citizens becoming increasingly divided and distrustful of one another. Some rallied behind Joran, convinced that he alone had the courage to confront the ancient threat, while others remained steadfast in their support for Terran's more cautious approach. As the conflict reached a fever pitch, the ancient fleet continued its steady advance, its massive vessels inching ever closer to the beleaguered vegan homeworld. Terran knew that time was running out, and that a decision would have to be made, one that would determine the fate of their entire civilization. We have to find a way to break this impasse, he said, his voice laced with a desperate urgency. If we don't, Vega may not survive the onslaught of the ancient fleet. But as the political factions dug in, their positions hardening with each passing day, Terran and his team found themselves caught in the middle of a battle that threatened to tear their world apart, a battle that could have dire consequences for the future of their species. As the political turmoil on Vega reached a boiling point, the ancient fleet continued its relentless advance, its massive vessels inching ever closer to the beleaguered homeworld. Despite the efforts of the vegan military, the defenders found themselves outmatched and outgunned by the sheer power of the ancient armada. Terran and his team, caught in the middle of the political infighting, redoubled their efforts to uncover the secrets of the fleet's origins. They pored over every scrap of historical data, searching for the clues that could unlock the mystery of their ancestors' downfall. "There has to be something we're missing," Terran muttered, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Some crucial piece of information that could help us understand what happened and how to stop this." As the team delved deeper into the archives, they began to piece together a disturbing picture, one that suggested their ancestors had not only created the ancient fleet, but had also been embroiled in a devastating conflict that ultimately led to their civilization's collapse. According to these records, our ancestors were engaged in a prolonged war with another spacefaring race, one that they were ultimately unable to defeat, Terran reported to the Council. The ancient fleet was their last-ditch effort to turn the tide, but something went catastrophically wrong. The Council members exchanged troubled glances, their faces etched with a growing sense of dread. "What happened?" one of them asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Terran shook his head solemnly. "It's unclear, but the records suggest that the fleet was intended to be a powerful deterrent, a last line of defense against their enemies. But somehow, it was turned against them, with devastating consequences." The implications of Terran's findings were staggering. If the ancient fleet had been the product of their ancestors' desperate attempt to save their civilization, then its reappearance now could signal the start of a new and equally perilous conflict. "We have to find a way to neutralize the fleet before it's too late," Joran interjected, his expression hardening with determination. "Every moment we waste debating the past, our world slips further towards destruction." Terran raised a hand, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I know, Joran, but we can't afford to act rashly. If we don't understand what we're up against, we'll only be dooming ourselves to repeat the same mistakes our ancestors made." The two men stared at each other, the tension palpable in the air. Joran's supporters, sensing an opportunity, began to shout their demands for immediate action, drowning out Terran's pleas for caution. As the council chamber descended into chaos, the ancient fleet continued its steady advance, its powerful weapon systems already primed for a devastating assault. Terran knew that time was running out, and that a decision would have to be made, one that could determine the fate of their entire civilization. Summoning his courage, Terran stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. "Listen to me," he shouted, his words commanding the attention of the room. "We cannot afford to be divided in the face of this threat. If we are to have any hope of surviving, we must work together, to understand the past and to find a way to confront the ancient fleet." Joran's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a sneer. "And how do you propose we do that? _scientist_. The fleet is already at our doorstep, and our defenses are crumbling. We need action, not more of your endless theories." Terran met Joran's gaze, his expression resolute. "I'm not asking you to trust me, Joran. I'm asking you to trust the truth that our ancestors fought to preserve, even as their world crumbled around them." Slowly, the chamber fell silent, the council members and spectators alike hanging on Terran's every word. In that moment, the young scientist knew that the fate of Vega rested on his ability to bridge the divide and unite his people in the face of the ancient threat. "We have a chance to learn from the mistakes of the past," Terran said, his voice steady and unwavering. "To find a way to confront this fleet and emerge victorious, without sacrificing everything we hold dear. But we can only do it together, as one people, united in our determination to protect our world." The silence stretched on, the air thick with tension. Then, slowly, a murmur of agreement began to ripple through the chamber, and Terran knew that he had found a way to break through the political deadlock. As the Vegan forces prepared to confront the ancient fleet, Terran and his team worked tirelessly to uncover the secrets of their ancestors' past, hoping to find the key to their salvation. The future of their world hung in the balance, and they knew that the choices they made in the coming days would echo through the ages. Despite Terran's impassioned plea for unity, The political divisions within Vega's government and populace remained deep and unresolved. Even as the ancient fleet continued its relentless advance, a vocal faction led by Joran refused to accept the truth about their ancestors' past. "This is all a lie," Joran thundered during a televised address. "These so-called discoveries are nothing more than the desperate attempts of a few misguided individuals to undermine our civilization. We will not be cowed by these fanciful tales of the past." Joran's words struck a chord with those who were unwilling or unable to confront the unsettling revelations about their ancestors. They rallied behind the politician, their fears and insecurities fueling a growing movement that sought to deny the very existence of the ancient fleet and its human origins. "We are a proud and strong people," Joran declared, his voice resonating with a fervent conviction. "Our ancestors did not create some monstrous weapon to be turned against us. This is a fabrication, a lie designed to sow discord and weaken our resolve." As the debate raged on, the vegan military found itself caught in the crossfire, its efforts to defend the homeworld hampered by the political infighting. Terran and his team, meanwhile, continued their desperate efforts to unlock the secrets of the ancient fleet, hoping to find a way to neutralize the threat before it was too late. "We're running out of time," Terran said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "If we can't find a way to stop the fleet, Vega won't stand a chance." But Joran and his supporters refused to be swayed, their intransigence only growing stronger in the face of Terran's warnings. They dismissed the young scientist's findings as the product of a misguided agenda, and they redoubled their efforts to discredit him and his team. "They're trying to undermine our very way of life," Joran thundered during a rally, his words whipping the crowd into a frenzy. "We will not let them tear down the foundations of our civilization, not when our very survival is at stake." The division within vegan society deepened, with the populace becoming increasingly polarized and distrustful of one another. Terran and his team found themselves the targets of harassment and even violence, as Joran's supporters sought to silence them and their treacherous findings. "We have to find a way to break this impasse," Terran said to his colleagues, his frustration evident. "If we can't unite the people behind a common cause, we may lose everything." But as the ancient fleet drew ever closer, the political turmoil only seemed to intensify. Joran and his allies continued to sow doubt and fear among the vegan populace, exploiting their growing sense of vulnerability and desperation. "They want us to believe that our ancestors were weak, that they were somehow responsible for the creation of this abomination," Joran declared during a televised debate with Terran. "But I say to you, my fellow vegans, that we are stronger than our ancestors ever were. We will not bow to the weight of their failures." Terran listened, his heart sinking as he watched the people of Vega become increasingly divided and distrustful of one another. He knew that without a united front, their chances of successfully confronting the ancient fleet were slim at best. "We have to find a way to break through this cycle of denial and mistrust," Terran said, his voice tinged with a note of desperation. "If we can't come together as a people, then all may be lost." As the ancient fleet loomed ever larger in the skies above Vega, the people found themselves torn between the stark realities presented by Terran and the comforting falsehoods espoused by Joran. The future of their world hung in the balance, and the choices they made in the coming days would echo through the ages. For Terran and his team, the stakes had never been higher. They knew that the answers they sought could mean the difference between survival and annihilation, not just for themselves, but for the entire vegan civilization. And as the political turmoil threatened to tear their world apart, they steeled themselves for the ultimate confrontation, determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As the political divisions on Vega continued to deepen, the ancient fleet drew ever closer, its massive vessels looming ominously in the skies above the beleaguered homeworld. Terran and his team, their efforts to uncover the truth about their ancestors' past repeatedly stymied by Joran and his supporters, knew that time was running out. "We have to find a way to break through this cycle of denial," Terran said, his voice laced with a sense of urgency. If we can't unite the people behind a common cause, we may lose everything. Terran's words echoed the growing sense of desperation that had taken hold across Vega. The vegan military, stretched thin and demoralized by the political infighting, struggled to mount an effective defense against the ancient fleet's relentless assault. And as the people's fear and uncertainty deepened, Joran and his allies only grew more emboldened in their efforts to suppress the truth. "This is all a fabrication, a lie designed to undermine our way of life," Joran thundered during a rally, his words whipping the crowd into a frenzy. "We will not bow to the weight of our ancestors' failures. We are stronger, we are better, and we will not be defeated." Terran watched the spectacle with a heavy heart, his mind racing as he grappled with the realization that the fate of their world now hung in the balance. If he and his team couldn't find a way to break through the political deadlock and unite the people behind a common cause, the ancient fleet's advance would be unstoppable. Suddenly, a thought struck him. Perhaps the key to breaking the cycle of denial and mistrust lay not in the archives or the council chambers, but in the very history that Joran and his supporters sought to erase. "We have to go back to the beginning," Terran said, his voice rising with a newfound sense of purpose. "To the very roots of our civilization, and uncover the truth that our ancestors fought so hard to preserve." Rallying his team, Terran set out on a mission to delve deeper into the fragmented records and artifacts that held the secrets of Vega's past. They pored over ancient texts, deciphered long-forgotten languages, and pieced together the shattered remnants of their ancestors' legacy. And as they did so, a remarkable story began to emerge, one that challenged the very foundations of vegan society and forced the people to confront the uncomfortable truths about their own past. "Our ancestors were not weak or cowardly," Terran declared during a televised address, his words carrying a weight that silenced even Joran's most ardent supporters. "They were a proud and accomplished people who faced threats and challenges that we can scarcely imagine. And in the face of those challenges, they fought with every ounce of their strength to protect our world." Terran paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the vegan populace. But they were not infallible. They made mistakes, and those mistakes ultimately led to their downfall. And now we stand at a crossroads, facing the same ancient threat that our ancestors once confronted. The silence in the chamber was deafening as the people grappled with the implications of Terran's words. Slowly, the tide began to turn, as more and more vegans found themselves drawn to the undeniable truth that their ancestors' legacy had imparted. "We can learn from their mistakes," Terran continued, his voice rising with a newfound conviction. "We can take the knowledge they fought to preserve and use it to confront the ancient fleet, to ensure that their sacrifice was not in vain." As the vegan people began to rally behind Terran's message, the political divisions that had once threatened to tear their world apart began to crumble. Joran and his supporters, their voices growing increasingly marginalized, were forced to confront the reality that the truth they had sought to suppress could no longer be denied. And with the people united in their determination to confront the ancient threat, Terran and his team were able to put their findings to use, devising a bold strategy to counter the fleet's overwhelming power. The battle that followed was fierce and unforgiving, with the vegan forces putting every ounce of their skill and courage to the test. But as they fought, they drew strength from the knowledge that their ancestors had walked this path before them, and that the future of their world hung in the balance. In the end, the ancient fleet was vanquished, its massive vessels reduced to little more than drifting hulks in the void of space. And as the vegan people celebrated their hard-won victory, they knew that the lessons of the past had been their salvation, a testament to the enduring strength and resilience of their civilization. For Terran, the triumph was bittersweet, for he knew that the true cost of their victory would be borne by the generations to come. But as he looked out over the cheering crowds, he felt a sense of hope that the lessons of their ancestors' past would guide them towards a brighter future, one where the mistakes of the past would never again be repeated.